Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Drunk Doctor Who.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Episode number 15. The Space Museum. It is the 19th of November, 2018. And this is 4 episodes long. It was broadcast from April 24th, 1965 to May 15th, 1965. And the companions are still Ian, Barbara, and Vicky. Before we go any further, I do want to dedicate this episode to KK. A friend of mine. To KK.
Yeah. To KK.
May he rest in peace.
Amen.
He passed away Friday. He was a believer, so we will see him again. Amen.
Rest his soul.
Amen. Anyway,
what are we drinking today, Heather?
well, Russian standard vodka. What else do I drink now that I'm on keto? Well, no, I take back. I do have some ouzo in there.
Ouzo.
Ouzo.
Black licorice.
Black licorice, Greek ouzo. But I'm not drinking that. I'm drinking my Russian standard.
I had a shot.
Yeah, he had a shot of ouzo. I don't have much left.
Yes.
I think last week I drank most of it.
Do you like it? It's real strong.
Yeah, well, my wife and I had each a shot of it on our honeymoon. Because we were on the island of Mykonos, or Santorini, one of the two. I think Santorini, actually. Santorini. And you look out on the bay and it's just gorgeous. And we were at this restaurant on the island and having lunch and brought us each a shot of ouzo. And I found out it was our honeymoon.
No.
And so it's a reminder, it's a reminiscence.
It's
thing.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm not always the
Nostalgia.
biggest fan of flavored vodka, but they have this whipped vodka. It tastes like whipped cream. It's awesome. Whipped vodka. It's really great. Yeah.
I like raspberry vodka.
Yeah.
I do like raspberry.
I'm drinking hot cider, spiked cider. It's the holidays with vodka cider.
He made apple cider and he put some vodka in it.
Yeah.
So he spiked it.
Cider.
Yeah.
It's the holidays. I felt like it's cold outside. I need something warm to
It
drink.
wasn't that bad today.
Come around Christmas, I'll drink some spiked eggnog.
Yeah, there's a cold front coming in. Should be here like tomorrow or Wednesday, and that'll be bad. But
Try some seasonal drinks.
exactly.
I need a stick with
spiced wine is great, but I can't have wine on keto.
Spiced wine, yeah.
I've
heard of that. I've never had it.
Oh, it's good.
Should try it.
I went soft keto this weekend because we went to the Texas Renaissance Festival like we do every year, and I really wanted some apple dumplings, and I really wanted a ice cream sandwich cookie, and I really wanted the daiquiris at the daiquiri shop across from where we stayed at the Red Velvet Inn, and so I was not keto for Friday and Saturday. Sunday and today
It's good to have a
cheat day.
Because it'll shock your metabolism.
There is truth to that, and I do need to. I need to figure out exactly how to do that and do it properly. This is the first time I've done it, and I don't know if I'm going to hit keto flu again or if my body was just like, sure, whatever, speed bump. Anyway, the Space Museum, this is the DVD, is also packaged with the Chase. And I couldn't remember why, because unlike Rescue and Romans, where Rescue's only 2 episodes, and it would seem like a cheat for a whole DVD for that. So they put the Romans in with it. With this one, it's 4 episodes, and the Chase is 6, but it's because they go together. They're perfect companion pieces, and the one feeds absolutely directly in the other. The Chase is presaged at the end of the Space Museum.
Yeah, peas.
Presaged.
Presaged.
Presaged. Pre-shown. Yeah. Presaged. Okay, anyway. And next time, which will be probably 2 weeks from today, because I think next week I'm going to show him and his girlfriend another movie.
Movie night, yes.
Movie night. 2 weeks from today, we will do The Chase, which is really cool and has Daleks in it.
6 episodes.
6 episodes. And they go all over the bloody place. It's crazy. They even end up, spoilers, they wind up at the top of the Empire State Building at one point.
And they actually went to location to film that?
I don't know if they did on this one. I don't know. I think they may have.
That's my first note, is location filming, site shooting versus sites.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're talking about how it looked like the Arizona desert when they're on planet
Xeros.
Xeros.
Zeros. But they end up on the planet, like, the Space Museum is this museum on the planet Zeros.
Zerons.
Yeah, and the people are called Zerons, and they were
They
conquered.
have 4 eyebrows.
They were conquered by the Morocks.
I don't know if they're supposed to Morocks yet. Yeah, I wrote it down.
Morocks.
Yeah, the bad guy Morocks.
Got very Lobos.
Lobos. Like Los Lobos. Hey man, what does Lobos mean?
I don't know. In the subtitles they put it in all capitals as if it stood for something.
Well, no, but Lobos in Spanish was like Los Lobos.
I don't know.
Oh.
I took 2 years of Spanish and I couldn't tell you. I'm so bad with names. I didn't bring my.
I took 2 years of Italian, and you get to Italy and you can do some of it, but you can't do it like here, not that well.
Yeah.
But
you gotta immerse yourself in it.
Correct. Immersion is the best way. It starts coming back to your brain, starts clicking better. But anyway, so they go to this planet, and when they get there, it looked like Arizona. That's how we mentioned Arizona, and he came up with the location filming. Generally speaking, they did everything in the United Kingdom, and even when they went to other places that you could go to, they weren't really there. Like they didn't actually go to China to film Marco Polo. They didn't actually go to
budgetary constraints.
Oh gosh, yeah. They didn't go to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem or anything to film the Crusades. They it was all done on sets. Now later on in the 70s. In the late 70s, when Tom Baker makes Doctor Who super popular and they get larger budgets, they do start occasionally going to places.
What is it about Tom Baker that made Doctor Who really take off?
He was awesome. He's amazing. His personality is just fantastic. Vivacious, just outgoing, just effervescent. But he was just wonderful. He is the doctor for the 20th century stuff. He is the doctor,
flagship,
and he's by far the most popular of the 20th century doctors. And I would argue all of them. Although for this century, especially those people who only know this century Doctor Who, it's usually Tennant.
He's the modern.
Right.
He's real popular too.
Correct. He was the 10th Doctor. But
what made him so popular? Just. More
some of the same things as Tom Baker.
Yeah, good personality.
Yeah, good personality, just fit the role perfectly. But I mean, Tom Baker and really good stories. Same for Tom Baker. He had some really good stories. For Tom Baker was there for 7 seasons, and the first 6 were absolutely amazing. 7th one was going downhill. There was a showrunner that started then, and he and Tom Baker didn't get along. Russell T. Davies? No, that's the Martha film. I can't remember his name, but Russell T. Davies is the modern stuff. It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, but this guy kind of saw the decline of Doctor Who all the way through the 80s. He was left in charge because no one else wanted to take it over. It went from the mid-late 70s when Tom Baker was a doctor to this amazing program to pretty much a laughing stock because the budgets got cut and everything was real bad. And he oversaw it as it went downhill. But Tom Baker's first 6 seasons are absolutely amazing, and they occasionally go actually to the site because they actually had budgets then. The BBC kept trying to kill Doctor Who by taking away the budgets in the 80s until they were trying to starve the beast, as they say. But City of Death, which is just an absolutely fantastic serial, written by Douglas Adams from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fame. Amazing serial, and it was actually filmed. Some parts of it were filmed on location in Paris. And then the 2 Doctors, parts of it were filmed on location in Seville, Spain.
So that's all within the UK, so they could kind of work within their budgetary constraints because traveling is a little bit cheaper within.
The United Kingdom
is within Europe.
Right, it's in Europe, but the United Kingdom is separate from.
Right, but I meant
French or Spain.
Travel within Europe is much
it's cheaper. Yeah.
So
especially you take the channel, just take a train.
Yeah, not within the UK.
Right.
Europe.
Right, and the UK is still currently part of the European Union.
They voted to
to leave,
but they haven't yet.
Divorces take time. They're drawing up the paperwork, and it's basically a divorce.
Yeah, they're supposed to make a plan, and they just haven't yet. And they set a deadline. They're like, well, we need to have a plan to leave by this deadline, and that deadline is coming up. And they're like, we still don't have a plan, but we're going to leave anyway.
Prime Minister May, Theresa May, I think, she was the next person basically in line for that government, but she's not the right person at the right time to actually do what they need to do. They need to get somebody in there who's a better leader and more forceful. But I mean, that's British politics, you know.
So British politics, they have prime ministers, which are pretty much like presidents. What's the monarchy for at this point? Is that just more of a symbolic thing? Like
yes and no.
Queen Elizabeth, what does she do? She picks members of parliament?
This is going to be another off-topic week, apparently. Okay, no. Okay, the Queen has absolute power, and she doesn't. Okay?
And corgis. She has.
Okay. In the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister is elected from within the party that wins. Okay? So, unlike us where we have pretty close to an absolute two-party system, you know, there's libertarians and there's Greens, but it's pretty much, without those being spoilers, it's pretty much a two-party system. And when Perot ran as an independent in '92, he lost, but he ended up, in some ways, helping Clinton to get in. But if he'd run as Republican, he might have gotten it, because that's what Trump did. Trump ran as Republican, and so rather than split everything, he ended up winning. Because it's, generally speaking, a two-party system. Mm-hmm. They have multiple parties, and they don't say, well, this district, it's all, so much for this guy and so much for this guy, even though in some ways they do that. But what they do is in many times they'll have larger areas, and they apportion the seats based off of the percentages. So, but a lot of it is actually district-based. So
do they have gerrymandering?
No, they go by counties, ancient counties, and that's how it's done. But some places will have extra seats, like London and stuff like that. But let's say Worcestershire County over here, or Sheffield County. I think Sheffield's a county. Mm-hmm. They have their representative or representatives, and within that county, it will be apportioned out by percentage or whatever, or something like that, and then all those people go to the Parliament, and they have two bodies, the House of Commons and the House of Lords, which is kind of like our House and Senate, except their House of Lords is not elected. Their House of Lords is hereditary, but whereas the House of Lords used to have most of the power, it slowly but surely passed to the House of Commons, so that it's more of a democracy. But it's a constitutional democratic monarchy, basically. Okay, right. Well, the thing is the British system has evolved over literally millennia, slowly but surely, from an absolute monarchy to a shared power with the House of Lords, to the House of Lords, then a shared power with the House of Commons, to slowly but surely all of it pretty much going to the House of Commons. But technically, the Queen still has absolute power. Anytime a prime minister, they have their elections, and they don't have it every 4 years or whatever. They have to have it at least every 5 years. But if there's a vote of no confidence, and the prime minister has to step down, then they have an election. So it could be 2 years or 3 years or whenever. They just have another election, and then they have the election across the country. They get the results, and they go, okay, the Labour Party has, I don't know how many seats are in the House of Commons, but 220 seats. The Tories. Democrats and Republicans pretty close, okay? The Tories, which is a nickname for the Conservative Party, I believe, the same way the GOP is a nickname for Republicans. The Conservative Party has 200 seats, okay? But 220 isn't enough. Let's say there's 500 seats. Well, the Scottish Independence Party over here has 50 seats, and then you've got maybe the Socialist Party over here with 30. Yeah, that's 500. Okay, so what will happen is these guys have 220, these guys have 30. Let's give a better example. These guys, let's say these guys have 220, these guys have 29, right? So we got 51 and 200. Well, these guys have the most, and they'll try to make an agreement with one of these other smaller parties to govern. They generally don't go against the other big one because they're usually opposite ends. And they'll try to make a coalition with them with these guys. If they can't, then they might make a coalition with them. If they can't, then these guys get a chance to make a coalition, and they might make a coalition with the Scottish Independence Party, and then they get to govern. But the people get the most seats get the first chance. Then after they get a government together, okay, that group says, okay, we're going to be in the government, and you have to pay attention to our issues because we're the big party, but you also have to pay attention to our issues because if we walk away, the government collapses. And that can happen at any time. And they vote on who they want to be prime minister. Then that prime minister has to go to the monarchy and request permission to formally establish the government. And then the king, or in this case the queen, she's been queen since the 40s, 30s?
After
I think 40s.
King Charles VI and World War II.
But
at
Queen,
some point.
yeah, Queen Elizabeth has been there forever. I mean, she was 70 years, I think. Yeah.
Daughter.
Yeah, she was his daughter.
And then wasn't she in World War II? Didn't she drive like ambulance?
Yeah, but I think it was like just during or just after World War II she became queen. But she has to go, okay, you have my permission to make a government. Now, whenever a law passes in the House or in the Commons, and it has to go to the House of Lords, when it passes there is a representative for the Queen, and the representative states whether or not the monarch will allow the law to pass. And way back in the day, the main language spoken in England, in the United Kingdom, was not English, it was French, because a lot of there was a lot of ties with France and a lot of the same bloodlines and all that, a lot of intermarriage and stuff. And England would own parts of France at times, and France would own parts of England at times. That's why you've got certain parts of France that are really named at like parts of England. But the aristocracy would speak French. And so this guy answers either oui or no in French, not even in English. But theoretically, the Queen can stop any law and all laws from ever passing or changing by just telling this guy no.
But she never does.
But she hasn't in 200 years. I think it was the last time they ever stopped that. Now, in theory, she could absolutely do anything she wanted. However, most monarchies remaining in the world, most of them are generally symbolic, okay? They don't hold a ton of power. They are there because they are traditional. There are a few exceptions where they still govern, but what the monarch mostly does is our president does both the day-to-day executive stuff and he does the ceremonial stuff. Or sometimes he'll send the vice president to do ceremonial stuff. But generally speaking, the president should do that. Like greets dignitaries from other countries, goes to funerals for other heads of state, does diplomacy, stuff like that. Generally speaking, but sometimes if it's a lesser thing, he'll send the vice president. But we have it pretty much all in one. But they separate it, where the prime minister pretty much does the day-to-day executive, and the queen does the ceremonial stuff. Like I said, on paper, she can do almost whatever the heck she wants, because they don't have a Bill of Rights like we do here in the States. But realistically, unless it was a national emergency, unless, there's World War II or something, right? Something crazy is going on, the British love their monarchy, and they especially love Queen Elizabeth.
God save the Queen.
Yeah, God save the Queen. But I think that if somebody came in who was not a benevolent monarch and tried to enforce some of the old ways, I think that they would see their rights on paper curtailed rapidly. But hopefully that will never come to pass or happen. But she is one of the richest people in the world because she owns so much stuff. And although I think J.K. Rowling may have more money than she does.
I think, isn't Vladimir Putin, the richest person in the world?
He is stupidly rich because like most dictators, they loot their country in favor of their own personal wealth. That's what the Castros did. That's what happened in Venezuela. Everywhere.
How do you know so much about British government?
I don't know. I'm an Anglophile. I mean, I know Doctor Who, Mike Oldfield, Monty Python.
Have you ever seen The King's Speech?
No.
Good movie about King Charles VI.
Yeah, I understand. I've never watched it. But anyway, no. And you remember what the difference is in the United Kingdom, right?
Between
England, Britain,
United Kingdom,
Scotland, and all that.
Yes.
Yeah. England is England.
Mm-hmm.
Britain is England and Wales. Great Britain is Britain, England, Wales, and Scotland.
And that's where you get all the flags, and you have the flag, and then the flag and the stars.
Right. And the United Kingdom is Great Britain. Mm-hmm. It's the United Kingdom of Great Britain, which is England, Wales, and Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Used to be and Ireland, but then the mostly Catholic part left the UK and left the mostly Protestant / Church of Englandy part in the north.
Does Northern Ireland want to leave as well, though? They just
there's always some people who do and some people who don't. They had a referendum in Scotland not that long ago to leave, and it was 55-45 to stay.
Do you think
or something like that? But now after United Kingdom leaving the EU, they're talking about it again. But it was supposed to be a once every 20 years referendum, so they've got to wait a while.
Do you think if Northern Ireland does leave, will it ever be reunited with the rest of Ireland, or is it always going to be Northern Ireland?
I don't know.
If you think it'll join up again?
Oh my gosh, Ireland overall is starting to lose some of what made it Ireland. It's Catholicism. They recently voted to allow abortions. They were like the last. Them and I think maybe Italy were like the last holdouts in Europe against that because of the Catholic Church and Catholicism. Yeah. But they recently allowed that. I think the differences between Northern Ireland and Ireland are becoming less over time. It's kind of sad. Well, not sad that they may eventually be reunited, but it's sad that Ireland is getting away from its Catholic roots, which I think are really awesome, you know.
Have you ever read or seen The Cider House Rules? It's a book and movie. We should probably get back on topic though.
I think you're just trying to make these podcasts as long as you plot. Okay.
I had questions.
Yeah, questions. Questions about the United Kingdom.
We could just edit that out.
Well, no, we don't edit. That's the whole point. This is organic.
I should save those questions for outside the time.
Well,
but something will click, and then question will just.
It doesn't matter. It's all okay. That's the whole point of this. And if no one ever watches it, it's fine. And if about 1 million people watch it, it's fine. I think we got 16 subscribers now. I think we're up to. I think we're barely staying along with or ahead of our podcast or of our episode numbers.
If we get 1 subscriber per episode,
that's
doing really good.
So far, yeah. All right. Okay. So they show up at the Space Museum, and
they fell off the time tracks. They're They're in a different dimension of time.
Well, okay. All right. The Space Museum, the TARDIS had jumped a time track because a switch hadn't fully flipped over, and they can't be seen or heard or make tracks or anything until they actually arrive.
So they traveled a little bit in the future, but they could
kind of slightly
dimensional.
Right. They're off to the side a little bit. It's there's actually a semi-equivalent in 21st century Doctor Who when they take an entire section of space, the Crab's Head Nebula, I think, or something like that, and they move it half a second or 1 second into the future. So you can't see what's going on. You can't get to it because it's half a second or it's a second into the future. And it's basically
reality.
Right. So it's set aside, like exactly what happened here is the closest.
But it wasn't quite the future. It was an alternate version of the future because, spoiler.
Well, they saw an alternate version of the future. Wait, we're talking about the first episode. They see themselves in the cases in the first episode,
which they think is their future. But
it's one of the possible futures. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, the whole first episode is kind of weird when they're figuring out that they're on this little side time track and that they're waiting for themselves to catch up, and it's very different.
Yeah. It kind of, even when that corrects itself, it stays a mystery until the very end when they really finally explain it to the...
Correct, the end of the serial.
Yes.
Yeah. But, okay, this is going to sound weird, but a lot of the plot for this story is very much like the book and movie Battlefield Earth, which, if you've seen, or good book, horrible movie, but in that you have a alien race that comes down, conquers the planet, wipes out most of the population, and keeps some of the young ones as slaves, just like the Morocks were keeping the Zerons as slaves. Right.
So we had Tor, Darko, and...
Right, those are the good guys.
Yeah. Three of them.
Three of them.
Those are the three main ones.
I think those are ones that we get that are named.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a bunch.
But eventually...
Sita dies.
Yeah. Well, no. Sita comes back.
No, Darko woke up. Thought it was
Sita did, yeah.
He got shot by her again.
But yeah, essentially in that movie, just like with here, the alien race comes in, conquers the planet. Mm-hmm. Here they use it for a space museum, which is a really weird use. They're mining Earth for resources. And just like there, you've got a governor. This is what made me think of it, because you've got the guy in charge, who in the movie's played by John Travolta. The guy in charge doesn't want to be there, and he wants to leave. And he's bored, and it's horrible, and these little humans, we should just kill them and stuff like that. And he only uses them to help him mine and stuff. But they eventually form a rebellion and overthrow them and all the same stuff. It was kind of cool.
They're trying to keep them in check though, because they're talking about how once they got to a certain age, they
get
ship
shipped
them off.
They're
just keeping the youth there, and then,
I guess.
But then they got too old. They stopped. They all grew up too fast.
The kids look like 16, 17, so,
and then
which is old enough to breathe.
Their home planet, Morrow said you let them get too old, and then they warned them. They radioed them.
Yeah.
Lobos was talking, and then he's like,
Yeah, but it's just interesting to see that echoed later on. I don't know if it was an influence or not. Who knows? Nothing new under the sun. Anyway,
it's true.
Eventually, the Doctor and the companions are worried that they're going to end up in these cases that they've seen, and they're trying. Half of the serial is them trying to figure out what they should do or not do, based on whether or not to put them in the cases or help them avoid being put in the space museum in the cases. Oh, funny thing, they find the Dalek in there, and the Doctor hides inside the Dalek at one point.
There's a reference to the Dalek. And then he even mimics the Dalek, and he does the voice.
Oh, but he says, I'm the master.
Master Dalek. I outsmarted the
No. I think he just says, I'm the master, which is hilarious, because later on his main antagonist is the master. But also because in the 21st century stuff, in the first series, they wind up in another museum and they bump into a Dalek. And the name of that episode is simply called The Dalek. I think. Let's
just
see.
The one.
Right, just one. Shoot. I think it's just called The Dalek, or maybe Dalek. Boop. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's just called Dalek. and that's from Eccleston's, and that's pretty cool. And I don't know if it was inspired at all by this, but it's just nice to see the links. Let's see. Anyway, so eventually they help the revolution. The revolution defeats the Moroccs. Oh my God, Vicky reprograms the computer.
The very old computer.
The very, very old computer, which she just opens the case and switches some stuff around to completely break in. How stupid were these people to go, we don't need locks on the computer, or apparently on the door, or we don't need them on the door, we don't need them on the computer. And anyone can get in there, right, and change the programming to their own questions. It's like, I mean, I guess they were foolish, or maybe super arrogant, or maybe it's also theoretically possible that the Taurons? Is it?
The Zerons?
The Zerons had no knowledge whatsoever of computers.
They didn't.
Right, which explains why they couldn't figure it out. So
you're like, what? That's not going to work.
That may actually make sense. That may, because they had no idea how to reprogram, so they just figured they were dumb.
Maybe that explains why the computers are so old, because they just have a more basic technology. Their weaponry. So the Moroccs, they described their race as ones that were prepared for war, and then the Zerons, they were prepared for peace. So that makes sense. The Moroccs have advanced weaponry technology like the ray guns, but they're not the smartest people, so they have like the really old tape memory computers.
Oh yeah, that's reminiscent of the '60s. Yeah, the computer was the good old tape drives.
But that's a fun way of explaining, you know.
It is.
Because back then, people have obviously skewed expectations of the future. Like even Back to the Future, the second movie. You know, they traveled to 2016, 2017, and they said about flying cars and the hoverboards. And,
hey, to be
now
fair,
we're past that
flying
date.
cars are almost here. Yeah. And hoverboards are almost. But no, really, no. Okay, for those of you who don't know,
past the future.
It's something.
We're in the future.
So where's my flying car?
Yeah.
No, today we use flash drives. Before flash drives, there were DVDs and CDs. Before those were discs.
Floppy disks?
3.5, and then before that 5 1/4 floppies.
Where does the 8-track fit in? Was that tape?
It was tape, but it wasn't for computers. But before the discs were tape drives. On a home computer, you'd have a cassette, a regular cassette. On big computers, you had big reels-to-reels, which is also how music was recorded and played back a lot for audio files back in the 60s and 70s. They had reel-to-reels before the CD came along, because the reel-to-reel was a better recording than cassette tapes, 8 tracks, or
it's kind of like a modern version of film. Like, how does film work?
Okay, you're talking about on the film the different...
The film reel. It's kind of like the modern version, because it just feeds through. Right?
Well, kind of, except on the computers, unlike a film, which is always sequential, the computers would save stuff on different portions of the tape, like it's done today, except it would have to go look for it and stuff. So it would go look for things that were saved, and you'd have to see the reel spin a lot. It wasn't very efficient or fast, but it's what was available back then. And now they have the solid state drives, which do the same thing in the solid state. Yeah.
Shake them. They're fine.
But anyway, so yeah, they don't wind up in there, and they don't, and they save themselves from that fate. But at the very, very end, the Daleks show up and say, "Hey, they've just left this planet. They're our arch enemies, and we've got to go get them."
The chase,
and that leads right into the next serial,
the
right?
Executioners.
Yeah, the Executioners. Yeah. Now we're almost done with the second season. The Chase, and then the Time Meddler, and that's it for the second season.
And then we just have one more season 3, or there are 4.
There's for the first Doctor.
Yes.
3 1/4.
Oh, okay.
Nowadays the Doctor regenerates pretty much at the beginning of a season. Back then it wasn't always the case. Well, he usually would. The first Doctor into the second, and the fifth Doctor, no, the sixth Doctor into the seventh were both done partway into a season. Because of the way, they had to replace Hartnell. He was just getting too old and couldn't remember his lines. Mm-hmm. He flubbed a couple in this serial. But to be fair, Governor Lobos flubbed a line I saw as well, and they left it in.
I have a note about that. It's very it's kind of stage direction. It's very play or drama, where like the lines when they're delivered and you messed up, you just kind of work with it and
keep going. Yeah,
you just keep the show must go on. I just went to a play, The Wizard of Oz, at the Civic Center, and there were a couple of parts where someone would flub a line, and then they just kind of role play through it, or they have Toto the dog, and the dog jumped out of the basket and ran off stage, and I have to go find I have to go home and find Toto, and she just ad-libbed that part in, and everyone laughs. But they
had an actual little dog.
Yeah, it makes it more believable because in real life, no one ever speaks perfectly. Like you have,
I know, but on TV they all speak perfectly all the time.
But there's sort of that disconnect in modern day television. It's so much cheaper just to retake things until you get the line exactly right. But back then it was much more believable because you'd mess up a word and you just re-say it, and you just kind of
right. Well, remember, like I said, they were running on the cheap and they couldn't do a lot of retakes. So you might do a couple, but they eventually just had to go with the best of what they had. These days it's all digital and there's so much money, especially in the States. Although to be fair, Doctor Who in the UK at this point has enough money to do as many retakes as they want, practically.
But with the messing up the lines, I feel like it helps the immersion. Like it makes it believable.
It makes it more realistic.
People don't always speak perfectly.
I agree.
So there's a cartoon that kind of Bob's Burgers. It's kind of different. Have you ever seen Bob's Burgers?
Yes.
It's very different where like characters will talk over each other, and there will be 2 dialogues or 3 dialogues going at the same time, and that's totally against everything else you see on TV because everyone speaks in turn. No one speaks over each other because it'd be confusing. But Bob's Burgers took a more realistic approach to dialogue and lines.
And we occasionally speak over each other. We usually wait our turns, but sometimes we're drunk. Yeah. Most of the times we're drunk. But I prefer The Simpsons. Which is catching up to Doctor Who in a number of episodes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, what other questions did you have?
I wanted to talk about how they fix their future because there are different theories of time and dimensions of time, and some people say time is incorrectible. You can't ever change anything because whatever happened is meant to happen. Like saying the universe created itself, and you go back in time and you try to change something, you end up being the cause of how that happened.
Right. And it's very butterfly effect.
Yeah, the butterfly effect. But this sort of set up a standard for Doctor Who of their take on how time works, because in a way they changed their future. They changed what they saw as their future.
So they were trying to, but they kept dealing with does this work without. And by the way, we talked about City of Death earlier. Mm-hmm. That's one of the main plot points in City of Death. It's just insanely awesome and fantastic. Like I said, Douglas Adams wrote it, and he reutilized some of those same themes in some of his other books and stuff. Let's see, but on this, what was specifically the question?
Does that play into why later on in Doctor Who they changed the future, like inspiring Vincent van Gogh to paint the TARDIS and the Starry Nights, and why they're able to change things? Because at the very beginning of the first season and the second season, the Doctor says you can't change history, but then sometimes he ends up being the catalyst for how that.
Right, you can't change. Right. Nero and the in the Romans and the burning of the city. Right.
But then later on, he does change history.
Well, yes and no. Okay, there's several good stories written on that, and the upshoot to most of the stories and most of the philosophy, I think, I don't care about philosophy. It's all crap. No, when you go to philosophy, stick with the Greeks. They're okay. The Germans are all nut bar crazy. Okay.
The who's? The Germans.
The Germans. The German philosophers are all nut bar crazy. Nietzsche. Oh, the great Nietzsche. No, Nietzsche. He ended his life in an insane asylum. Okay. Just nuts.
He thought too.
Yeah, Nietzsche said God was dead. God said Nietzsche was dead. But no, it was actually syphilis. Seriously, it was syphilis. He liked his prostitutes. Anyway. Okay, so a lot of the general idea in Doctor Who as well is that you can't change the big things. There are big things that happen that you can't change, like the assassination of Lincoln. Okay, there's a nice short story about a guy going back in time and trying to warn people about the assassination of Lincoln. Now, he ended up, people remembered him, and his family became wealthy as a result because he had sent that message back to his great-great-grandfather or whatever. He wasn't able to stop the assassination of Lincoln because no one believed him, but people remembered that he tried afterwards. And he became wealthy and famous. So you can't change the big things. In Doctor Who, they're called fixed points in time. You can't change a fixed point in time. All you can do is change the little things around it, Okay. So you cannot stop World War II from happening. You can't stop, Hitler. You can't stop the really big stuff. What you can stop are little things. Like you can say, you can't stop the volcano from blowing up in Pompeii, to use a more recent Doctor Who episode. What you can do is maybe save a few people from it. So you can't do the big stuff, you can do little stuff.
So is that saying, the course of time is going to take place and you're literally incapable, or is that a rule that you can't as a time?
Mostly, it depends, but mostly the doctor sometimes will say it's a rule you have to do, but mostly it's because you can't change it. But a lot of times the reason given will change depending on, the doctor's not 100% consistent. Doctor Who is not 100% consistent at all, but it's fun. And it's I hate this term, but it kind of works. There's a great episode, like we talked about City of Death. If you want to show somebody classic Doctor Who, see if they're interested, show them City of Death. In the modern stuff, there's an episode called Blink with the Weeping Angels.
Right.
If you want, I think I mentioned this last time. Show them Blink. There's this. Right. If they like it, they'll like it. There's a great line in that, and the doctor says, from a linear progression, time looks like a line, but it's not really like that. It's more like a wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey ball of stuff.
And, kind of like the intro graphic to
essentially, but he says it almost exactly like that. And the point is that it's not linear. It's all this big interconnected, twisty, turny stuff. So there are things that will affect other things. There are things that will do stuff, and especially in the Moffat era, he goes around and screws with everything. Just literally screws with everything. Moffat bucket. Yeah, and he messes with all of it. But yeah, so you cannot change the big things.
So Moffat messed with the continuity of what the show Doctor Who was.
Oh hell yeah, all the time. All the time. He just screwed with everything.
After Moffat, did they stick with some of his changes, or did they sort of
retcon it
and go back to to follow it?
Moffat did the show from series 5 to 10.
Okay.
And now we're on series 11.
No.
We're only 7 episodes in this series 11.
So we're just ending Moffat's.
Well, no, Moffat's ended already.
Okay.
But we're on Chibnall's the new showrunner, and Russell T Davies was the modern era. I can't think of the name of that showrunner from the 80s. Jonathan Nathan Turner. He was the one who pretty much, the show is going down. Not necessarily because of him, but maybe, but it was more that BBC was trying to kill it, and we could have either not had Doctor Who at all, or had not that great Doctor Who, and I'm glad we had the not that great Doctor Who. Although to be fair, at the very end, it was getting better again. The problem was it had already been canceled. Really sad. There's some really good stuff in season 25.
You think that is what led into it being rebooted with the modern stuff?
Well, I think after nobody really wanted it to go away except the BBC. So I think there was finally enough. The BBC either had enough outcry, and or realized they had made a mistake, and or figured, well, now we can not revive. We can revive it and bring this show back and continue it with a fresh outlook, a fresh start, a more modern take on it. Which is why now it's not as serialized. It's not as sequential. It's much more episodic. But yeah, okay. Series 11 has been airing last month and this month, and it's only 7 episodes in. There's only 10 episodes, and it was going to be a Christmas special. Now it's a New Year's special. It's not a good sign when Doctor Who's taken off a Saturday and moved to Sunday, because it's nowhere near as prestigious a time slot. It's also not a good sign when they take him off for Christmas and move him to New Year's.
So you
once again, not as prestigious as a time slot. The ratings keep going down. Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor, had a nice spike for her first episode or two, because people wanted to see the new Doctor and people wanted to see the first female Doctor. Unfortunately, the ratings are continuing to go down, which you could argue is a continuation of the Moffat era decline. You could argue that it's more Chibnall, but the main complaint is that the stories are way too politically correct. All the characters are too politically correct. It's not. It's a whole bunch of PC rammed down your throats, which is why we hate Moffat, and bad stories. I mean, I can forgive a lot if the story is good. Okay? I love the movie Armageddon. Fun movie. Fantastic movie. The physics suck in that movie. They do not work. That's not how physics works. But I can forgive it because the rest of it's awesome. It's like with Moffat. If the stories were fantastic, I could ignore a lot of the PC garbage and a lot of the Clara is God garbage and a lot of the Doctor has to run his entire life on the companion garbage. But they're not. Not only do you have all this other PC stuff and all this other crap, but the stories are not good. I feel
like that a lot of things in the entertainment industry are victims of people's political and social agendas. Like
Star Wars.
Movies, and then even in the gaming industry, like the newest Assassin's Creed game takes place in, I think, Rome. And they wanted to make it, more diversified racially and sexually. So they put all these things in that aren't historically accurate.
I know nothing of Assassin's Creed, but to be fair, the Romans enslaved a lot of people from all over the Known World. Yeah. So they would have had possibly some Chinese, but at least Indians. Indians, not American Indians. And they would have definitely had a lot of black slaves from Africa. I mean, they did, but also they had a lot of white slaves from Germany, or what would later be Germany, from the United Kingdom. I mean, the Romans basically conquered every single set of people they ever encountered, except the Scots. The Scots are the only people that were able to resist it.
Were they the Vikings?
No, Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if the Romans conquered the Vikings, but there was a wall built. I think I told you this, Hadrian's Wall. Okay.
Do you do that? Is that one of the campaigns in Age of Empires?
I don't know.
Okay.
But
I remember a wall.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Well, besides like the Great Wall of China, but
I remember playing as the Scots.
Yeah, then that'll be Hadrian's Wall. So they were never ever able to conquer the Scots. So they built a wall going across the entire
The Roman
island.
Empire did.
The Roman Empire.
Just to wall them off.
Yeah, just to wall them off. It's like, okay, we'll defend the wall. We can't beat them, but we're gonna make sure they don't invade us. The same way Trump wants to build a wall here, right? But they built a wall going across, and there's still bits of it left. Mm-hmm. Unlike the Great Wall of China, which is giant chunks of it left. This one was a much smaller, more just more of a regular wall. Mm-hmm. It was like maybe, I don't know, 10 feet high as opposed to like the Great Wall of China, which is 30 feet high and goes thousands of miles. This was this one maybe 100, maybe 120 miles, and it was it was a regular wall size.
Is there any part of that still today? Can you go see
Hadrian's Wall? Yeah, you can be driving to Scotland. I have a friend who lives in Annan, Scotland, and I went and visited them in '95. Stayed with them for a week or so, and
that's when I was born.
95?
1990.
And we saw parts of the wall. There's still some parts there, and not a whole ton of it. It's not like the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem or the Great Wall of China, but there's still some right there. Yeah, it's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
And there's some Doctor Who where you actually go back to the Romans back then, and I think there's an episode of Blackadder that goes back there.
I saw the first few episodes of Blackadder with Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the first season's okay. It really kicks into gear from the second season.
I only watched the first few.
Okay. Well, there's only like 8 episodes a season. But once you get to the second season, Blackadder is no longer the sniveling little guy. Now he's snarky and witty as all get out, and he's awesome. That's where he really hits his stride on this show.
Like Rowan Atkinson. Ever watch Mr. Bean?
Yes, but I prefer Blackadder, and I prefer.
He had some stand-ups they do for the.
Mm-hmm.
You ever watch Johnny English?
That's the one I was trying to think about. I love Johnny English. All right.
You made a second one that wasn't so great, but the first one was really
I like the second one too, and there's a third one coming out.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited.
All right. What's the next question? I should be drinking more.
I finished.
That's it?
No, my drink.
Oh, well, you can get another drink if you want. What's the question?
The biological things. The fourth episode, you're dealing with the
Zafra
gas or something.
Yeah.
And we're talking about how Barbara woke up after she got gassed and passed out.
Yeah.
And it was still constantly gassing her.
Right. Her and what was the guy? What was the kid?
I think that was Sida. S-I.
Yeah, her and Sida are trying to escape the museum, and they're putting the saffron gas, which will paralyze them. And at the end of the third episode, they fall to the floor, and they should be passed out. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning of the fourth episode, somehow they get up.
Yeah, while still being gassed.
While still being gassed. Right, there's a couple possibilities. One is which is one I gave you earlier.
Mm-hmm. I liked your explanation.
Might be that the gas is great for other races, but not so good on humans. Which
Same
is very
explanation for how Vicky broke into the computer system.
Right. It works great on these Gahanyaks, but they haven't really encountered humans. Although I think they referred to them as humans at one point.
Did they?
I think so. I think they referred to
I think so.
Yeah. It's like looking for 3 humans.
Yeah.
How do you know they're humans? Y'all look. They look.
The doctor's not a human.
Right. But they weren't looking for the doctor. The doctor's right there. Notice that.
Maybe because they read the doctor's mind on the computer thing.
Possibly, although if you notice, the doctor was able to project the stuff he wanted on there.
Only after Lobos told him how it worked, though.
Yeah.
Because I guess he did kind of fool him with the companions.
And the bicycles. Well, hold on. Okay, so we didn't mention this before. Wait. Let me finish this point, then I'll explain. Okay. So the other possibility is that when they fell to the floor, because remember the gas stayed up here. Mm-hmm. When they fell to the floor, they got some clean air. And after it got out of their lungs, they were able to continue.
That's also good.
The paralysis was temporary, and so that's possible. But, okay,
they kind of the Morocks.
Yeah.
They kind of alluded to. They're a little inconsistent where they said the gas would paralyze them. They go and take them, and then the next few episodes they said it was just to drive him out of the museum. And
Well, that was the point.
plan.
They were trying to drive him out, but if it didn't drive him out, then they'd go in and they'd find him and they'd take him out. So, but no, that was consistent. But no, the doctor, when he's captured by the Morlocks in episode 2, gets put in this chair, and a band comes out and holds him in.
What happens if he just didn't sit down? Because he sat down.
Well, eventually you're gonna sit down. Yeah, that's the whole point. But it was a clever little mousetrap. Anyway, but once he sat down, anything the guy asked him, whatever the doctor thought of, would be projected on the screen.
Yeah,
Later on, you have something called psychic paper, okay, which makes people see what they want to see. Well, this was kind of a psychic screen or a psychic, hooked up to the chair, psychic chair, where he could read your thoughts when he asked you something, which was funny because I'm guessing, and oddly enough, that still goes back and connects to certain things in Battlefield Earth. Except that was more of an education device.
Was that made before or after?
Battlefield Earth was after this Doctor Who serial.
You think Battlefield Earth was inspired by this Doctor?
Who the heck knows? I don't know. Ask L. Ron Hubbard, but he's dead. Anyway, he wrote Battlefield Earth.
Let me get my Ouija board now.
Yeah. Okay, L. Ron Hubbard was a big Scientologist also. Now, besides the Scientology, which I think was written as a joke, but created this whole Church of Scientology, the book is Dianetics. There is some good advice in the book, but there's a lot of really weird things that Scientologists believe. But for some reason, it's taken off in Hollywood. And like Tom Cruise, Nut Bar, right?
Yeah.
He's a Scientologist. John Travolta, Nut Bar, right? He's a Scientologist.
Guy from Iron Man.
Yeah, but I think L. Ron Hubbard wrote the Dianetics and started the Church of Scientology on a bet. But besides that book, well, like I said, there is some good advice in the book, but what some of the stuff they believe is just nuts. But besides that book, he wrote a bunch of other science fiction. Some was okay, but some was really good. Battlefield Earth is really good. If you read the whole thing, it's like 1,400 pages. And he had a decology, a 10-volume thing, which was called Mission Earth, which was pretty good and kind of fell apart at the end. The third act wasn't very good, but most of it was pretty good. But he had a bunch of other stuff. He was a science fiction writer from like the 30s, 40s, all the way into like the 80s. And I think he died in the 90s. But he had some good writing. John Travolta wanted to do Battlefield Earth because he was a Scientologist, because L. Ron Hubbard had wrote it. But the movie is really, 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 really bad. I mean, really bad. Really bad. But anyway, so in this chair thing, the doctor projects stuff onto the screen. And the guy asks him a couple questions, and he gets to learn about the other companions, and that's when he calls them humans. He tells him to go look for the humans. Although, how he knew of humans, who knows? I don't know. I don't think the word showed up on the screen, It was just a picture of them.
Maybe he just knew enough about...
I don't know. Or maybe that's what their word for humans translate. Maybe that's how their word translated. Because the TARDIS translates everything.
What was that called?
The TARDIS translating everything?
Yes.
It's called a convenient plot device, is what it's called.
But they had the chameleon circuit, which and then they had a language circuit or something, right?
Kinda. I don't think it's ever fully explained, except the TARDIS translates. Okay. Except it doesn't translate every language. It translates a bunch of them. It's supposed to translate all, but the Doctor still runs into races that aren't translated, and he happens to speak their language.
Has that happened yet? It happened with one of the alien races, I think.
Not
yet.
Not that we've watched, but it happens later on in the modern stuff. The rhinos. I can't remember what they're called. But there's a rhino race that are kind of like the police of the galaxy. And they speak like ro, ko, mo, fo, so, to. They apparently only have one vowel. For some reason, the TARDIS doesn't translate. It also apparently doesn't translate Ancient Gallifreyan, because that's come up a couple times. And the
When in Rome.
Roman translated all the Latin and stuff, yeah. And I mean, but it's just funny the way it does or doesn't depending on the plot device. Like I said, Doctor Who is inconsistent.
That's when you just make up theories to explain.
Trust me, the Whovians have been doing this for 55 years. All right. And today actually is the 19th.
Did we just have the anniversary?
For Doctor Who?
Yes.
Well, really soon, the 23rd.
Oh, okay.
The 23rd of this month, in 4 days, this Friday, will be the 55th anniversary for Doctor Who. Oh, well, here's the Doctor Who. Go get some more alcohol. You got nothing there. All right. Doctor Who, 55th anniversary.
I got some.
Happy birthday, Doctor Who. 55 years. Holy mackerel. I'm getting old. All right.
I was older than you.
It is, by 5 years. Almost 5 years. All right, what's the next question?
Let's talk about the anatomy of the Doctor. Because they put him in the preparation thing to freeze him and put him on display in the case.
Mm-hmm.
And while Ian holds Governor Lobos at gunpoint, phaser point, he says to bring him back from the stasis.
Right, we're probably talking about
and
100 degrees negative.
Several times below.
Yeah.
And Governor Lobos goes on and on about his expectations of his anatomy. He says there's no way anyone ever comes back from this.
Well,
he's already
to
dead.
be fair, he said it had never been tried.
It's never been tried as well.
Yeah.
But maybe for the Morlocks, of course, they couldn't survive that, so he assumes the Doctor would also be dead. Because he has a very limited knowledge of other species. That's why they had the security system machine that didn't work on Vicky and the other things.
Yeah,
the gas that didn't work on.
Right. These are. I don't know how they conquered their galaxy, but they are their general
Just
corner of the
guns.
galaxy. But they weren't very good at anything.
Well, apparently the Zerons were pushovers.
Yeah,
They show up with some phasers and they're like, okay,
yeah.
you win.
This is my boom boom stick.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
So he said, the Doctor's already dead. It's never, of course, he can't survive it, but he did. But how does the Doctor survive that extremely low temperature? And he said his brain was still able to function
Right. Okay.
like a machine. Just
Well, to be fair, there are some people who go into comas and their brain still functions, supposedly. Things like that, weird things.
But you don't think like a human could survive that?
Well, I don't know. It depends on the process. It never the process, but
he didn't. The Doctor didn't describe it so much as in a coma, but as if he still was conscious.
Right, just super cold. Yeah. Okay. To be fair, don't know. Like I said, they don't explain the process. Don't know if a human could do it, but it has been established within canon, time and time again, that the Time Lord's physiognomy. Yeah, physiognomy. Is very different from humans in many ways. One is a greater durability. Another is a better survivability to wounds. But one of the key things is
because
he has two hearts, right? And with the two hearts, sometimes the Doctor will have one heart go down, but the other one's still working. And he's like, how do you survive like this? Because he's only got half things pumping. But obviously they have, I don't know if they have superior brains, they could, but they at least use a lot more of it, which is always the theoretical thing for man. What if mankind could use his entire brains?
Yeah.
Use 7% of our
there's a
brains or
movie
whatever.
plot about that. What is it called? Where they have a pill that unlocks the full potential of your brain. And then
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, why our brain is so much bigger than we use, right?
And movie Lucy, I think that was the plot of it too, where she unlocks the full potential of her brain and she
Oh, yeah, I didn't
warps
see Lucy,
reality.
but I saw the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just made a TV show about it too.
Huh.
It started off as a movie, of which I totally thought of way before they ever made that movie. I came up with it. So, wouldn't it be great if they made a movie about a pill that unlocks the full? Because I heard that we only use 10%, and then they made it. They stole my idea.
I think they said Einstein used like 15 to 20 or something like that. Yeah, it's crazy.
But that's I've heard that's somewhat inaccurate because while we're only using 10%, it's because that 10% is used for what we're using at the time. We have different parts of
sections for
different
parts, right?
Yeah,
Right.
because you do different things.
Right, you may use a different part of your brain to
So
speak
there's no
Spanish
way,
than you
like,
use for English.
If you're using 100%, it's of no use because they're all for different things. They're different,
right, you'd have to be
different
using them all at the
functions.
same time. Yeah, it'd be nuts. Be absolutely nuts. But anyway, but yeah. So the doctor's two hearts help. Doctor also can put himself into a trance or a voluntary coma, essentially, to escape. This is a time lord thing, to escape from what is imperiling them. So they can literally shut their bodies down to prevent further decay or disease or whatever it is. Shock. And this is shown later on when the doctor enters the Matrix.
Was that shown very early on when the doctor was down and they listened to his heartbeat and they said there's no heartbeat, and he said it's funny they didn't say about anything about his other heart because he's been unconscious before.
Hey, well, notice they haven't mentioned the planet of Gallifrey either.
Haven't they? Didn't they?
No.
Oh, okay.
Remember he just says he's from somewhere else,
Okay.
right? I'm not even sure the term Time Lord has come up yet, 100%. The show's been on for, 4 days shy of 55 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of canon. A lot of this stuff developed over the decades. The two hearts thing develops at one point. Regeneration obviously had to develop when, they had to get rid of heart now, right? The Gallifreyans, the Time Lords, all that had developed over time. The sonic screwdriver, okay? We'll get to that eventually. Eventually, it's literally just a screwdriver at first. Right. At first, it's literally just a sonic screwdriver. It screws and unscrews screws, and it's used a few times like that. But later on, it's used as a way to bypass simple locked doors. We got a problem? All right, sonic screwdriver. We're good. And it kept getting more powerful, and they're trying to keep it from being the end-all, be-all. Mm-hmm. So they created things called deadlocks, where a sonic screwdriver can't even get past that stuff, And apparently it doesn't work on wood. Weird.
It's too primitive, the technology.
I guess, but it's one of those weird things where,
Does it explain how the sonic screwdriver unlocks things? Like how it works? Why is it able to pass so many?
Okay, the sonic screwdriver sonics things and... Okay. It creates it doesn't never fully explains anything, but it creates a sonic frequency, a sonic vibration that can seem to reprogram things or detect things. Like it'll do this and go, oh, your potassium level's too high, stuff like that. But it uses sonic technology to make things explode in several cases, like landmines. Or to detect things, or to change programming on stuff, and it also
universal remote.
Kind
Did
of.
you ever use it to change televisions?
I don't think I've ever seen that. But there are TV remotes that look like the sonic screwdrivers.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
And it also has a computer in it that you can use to program stuff, and it's established, especially in the 50th anniversary special.
You can't program a wooden lock.
Well, no. They decide that it would take several quadrillion different combinations to open a lock, and they go, well, wait a minute, we're different. I told you about the multi-doctor episodes when they do the anniversary stuff, right? So like, well, wait, it would take 200 years. Wait, we're 200 years between doctors, and it's the same screwdriver. So if I start programming it now, by the time it gets to you'll have it done. And then, of course, the door was unlocked. Nobody ever actually just tried the door. But it had Clara, so that explains it. Anyway, wait, did that one have Clara? 50th anniversary? Yeah, 50th anniversary had Clara. Because in the episode before, I'll explain all that later. It sucks. What other questions do you have?
Ian's still my favorite companion. He was great in this one.
Ian's fantastic in this one.
Held some people up at gunpoint.
He's a good fighter, yeah.
Roughed over some guards. It's good.
Yeah, and Vicky is in some ways a better ingenue than Susan was. Yeah, you'll hate Dodo. Is she the replacement for Vicky?
Dodo?
Dodo. Right, her name is like Dorothy Doromir or something. Dodo for short.
Okay.
D-O-D-O. Yeah. She's the most annoying character. Oh my gosh, you're just happy when they unceremoniously get rid of her. There are some fantastic companions coming up though, even though some of them are short-lived. But yeah, they're really good. But one of the best, of course, is very long-lived, like Jamie McCrimmon.
Is that the one with the red hair?
Jamie McCrimmon is the
with the kill.
McCrimmon, the Scotsman, yeah, the Highlander. There you go. Cool. Well, next week we won't be doing one of these because we're going to have the last Monday of the month movie night.
We'll call it a Thanksgiving break from the podcast.
Well, there you go. Thanksgiving break.
Even though we have one every month.
Anniversary celebration. Well, this will be our second time. It's not like a well-established tradition yet. But everything has to start somewhere. And I'll be showing them a movie, him and his girlfriend. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll be doing The Chase.
Yes.
Sound good?
6 episodes, the Daleks. I'm excited.
6 episodes, yeah.
I love the Daleks.
We should be more drunk when we get in here on that one. Daleks. I love Daleks.
Alright. Thanks as always for joining us.
Yes, and
happy holidays.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas.
Happy Turkey Day.
And Turkey Day. I like Thanksgiving. Like I still like Independence Day better than 4th of July. Ooh, that's another good movie.
The movie?
Independence Day. Well, no, I mean, but also, I like the statement Independence Day.
Didn't they just make a new Independence Day remake?
Talk about PC destroying stuff.
I didn't see it.
Horrible. It destroyed everything good from the first one. And I'm not even sure the third one's ever going to get made. It's supposed to be 3.
Was this supposed to be a sequel? I thought it was a remake.
It was a sequel set 20 years later. It was supposed to be a third one. Third one may never get made. The second one bombed so badly. It's the same way Han Solo bombed so badly they canceled a bunch of Star Wars movies.
Oh, that was something I had written down in my notepad. Was they weren't leaving footprints when they're walking because they're out of the time dimension.
When they synced, the footprints showed up. And they showed up.
It reminded me of episode 8 where. Never mind.
I haven't seen it. No.
Luke makes like a force ghost of himself, and they think he's there, but he's really not.
A simulacrum?
Well, he uses the force to put his presence. It's a force ghost of him, but he's still alive. So he puts his presence on this other planet using force meditation. Right. So he projects himself there, and
so he makes a copy of himself elsewhere.
And he's not leaving footprints on the salt flat.
It's a simulacrum.
Yeah, it's a cool scene.
Okay.
The only cool scene in that movie.
Right. But that's what that's called, is a simulacrum.
Oh, okay. Is that like a monk?
Word for the day.
It is. Yeah.
Hey, goodbye.
Happy holidays. Thanks for joining us. Don't we have a word of the day every podcast?
It seems like it.
I like it.